Howdy, friends! It's Friday once again, so time for another edition of Rebel News. This is Rebel News for the week of February 9th, 2024.
Why are you gay?
Alrighty, friends, lots to discuss this week. But in channel news, as many might know, the Discord is still up. Invites still out there for anyone who wants to hop in. And this Sunday, we'll be watching the illustrious film Sniper Special Ops featuring Steven Seagal. Truly a spectacle unlike any other. You can only see it to believe it. So, well, looking forward to that. But in the meantime, let's get to some serious news. To start, the big news out of Syria this week was after 10 rather grueling days, the local defense forces were able to conclude their humanitarian and security operation in Al-Hol camp, which saw the arrest of 85 ISIS cell members as well as the freeing of one female captive. There was, I think, about 4 members were killed by Turkish occupation forces as they were going in between trying to get supplies for the operation. And for the most part, it seems to have been successful. Although the local defense forces did note that it is still a considerable expenditure of resources to maintain the camp, which has now been holding thousands of residents for a few years now, and it's becoming a kind of a difficult situation to manage the people, take them out, give them temporary shelter elsewhere, then bring them back in. It's been kind of a struggle so far. So despite the material shortcomings, they were militarily able to accomplish their objective. And they're looking in the future to hopefully trying to bring some more stability and security to that particular area. For some added context, the Al-Hol refugee camp is a camp located along the Iraqi-Syrian border that's kind of just been around since the American Gulf Wars have been in the area. And it was set up kind of as a housing, temporary housing for folks fleeing throughout the area and trying to get into Syria for safety. And then with the rise of ISIS, folks fleeing ISIS. However, international organizations have noted that it's pretty much ISIS who controls the camp and often use it for indoctrination. Brutal killings happen there and executions all the time in a public fashion. It's a really kind of dystopian place. It has about 60,000 residents estimated currently, and it's not exactly the most pleasant place on Earth, but someone's got to try to get that under control. The young Yazidi woman that had been rescued by YPG forces in the camp was named Kovan Ido Korto, and she had actually been detained there for about 5 years, they believe, and generally at the hands of some pretty cruel treatment. This was a pretty big symbolic win for the YPJ, who are basically one of their core missions is to protect and liberate such women. And they note that oftentimes, because of the way ISIS exploits women and tries to employ them as a sort of propaganda arm to indoctrinate and spread political messaging, that it's up to the YPJ and local women's self-defense forces to have to reach out to these folks and really try to bridge the gap and understand and ultimately sort of end what they're doing. And so, yeah, YPJ and women serve a pretty core role in relations in the Middle East, and particularly in conflict resolution. And hats off to the YPJ for representing. So while this is going on, and U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is in the area making various trips, the Iranian foreign minister is going to take a trip to Damascus to meet with presumably members of the Assad regime. And kind of a typical move to be expected as tensions in the region start to escalate. Iran, who has historically always sort of been a supporter of the Assad regime, is just coming in to show solidarity, coordinate, do what have you. But it is curious that Iran, in light of all that has been happening, is choosing to make this move now. Maybe they're just trying to sort of mimic or mirror the United States' similar moves in that region. And it seems probably likely. So we'll see, we could see a lot more similar posturing and such meetings between the Iranian foreign minister and other dignitaries in the future. So moving east across the border into Iraq, we've been monitoring the situation there, seeing how things are going. And the U.S., as one might expect, in their response last week, hit a number of targets in Iraq. There were several explosions heard throughout Baghdad, as well as, regions closer to the Iranian border, regions closer to the Syrian. It was pretty eventful, and it seems that anyone who's been following these segments for any amount of time will know Iraq does not really appreciate a whole lot that we've just been kind of doing whatever we feel like and not really keeping them informed or in the loop on the whole process. They were not consulted whatsoever in our retaliation strikes, and we once again killed a number of similar militia fighters that we have in the past. Is sort of the cycle has continued for about the second or third time now. And yet again, there are continued calls for the United States to leave Iraq. And yet again, the United States has publicly issued a statement saying that they don't intend to shift their posture, which, I guess doesn't necessarily preclude the coalition relocating, but it does seem like, at least on the surface, America's publicly taking a hard stance on leaving anytime soon. So we'll have to keep watching that, as it seems that tensions in Iraq aren't going down in the near future. And one place that has really never received enough adequate attention is south in Sudan. So in Sudan, there's been a 10-month ongoing conflict between the military and the Rapid Support Forces, Rapid Response Forces, is a paramilitary organization. And it's kind of been hell let loose over there. Over half the population of Sudan, which I think is about like 25 million people, is experiencing a need for some kind of aid and humanitarian assistance. And the UN organization UNICEF has been really trying to get aid and lobby for more aid, but currently estimates that upwards of 700,000 children currently face famine. And so making Sudan once again probably one of the most egregiously terrible conflicts in the world for children, which is really quite tragic. And definitely not enough. There's a lot happening in Africa right now, particularly in the Republic of Congo and Senegal, which has historically been a pretty stable place, is also experiencing issues. But one thing about Sudan is it's been off and on for decades, and the people have never really had a chance to truly recover from the numerous the genocides and ethnic cleansings and famines that they have experienced. Alrighty, and moving to the east, the world's been eagerly watching the Pakistani general elections take place, which have been somewhat marred by controversy and claims of lack of transparency and lack of democracy and even intimidation of voters. So, kind of an interesting aspect in all this. Imran Khan, who is the most popular candidate in Pakistan, was imprisoned and not barred from running in the general election, which, I mean, in its own right caused plenty of chaos. But interestingly, a bunch of Imran Khan sympathetic candidates started to run, and at least as of right now, seem to be in the lead in many of their elections. So it's curious that while attempts from somewhere to suppress Imran Khan were on the surface successful, his party still seems to be having some momentum in Pakistan. It was sort of interesting to note the varied reactions of the international community on this one. So, both the United States and the UK notably criticized Pakistan for some issues and claimed that there might have been some, violence and various unseemly acts taking place, but nonetheless acknowledged that they will work with the next Pakistani government. In contrast to that, however, there was Iran who just was like, "Oh yeah, congratulations on your democratic elections. Well done, thank you." And so that's interesting to note there. I think we'll who knows where relations with Pakistan might go from here. Probably worse. But kind of the jury's still out on that one, and we'll see how these the elections at the end finally pan out. And our final story here takes us across the border from Pakistan into India. So in northern India, in the town called Haldwani town, 5 were killed and dozens injured in a protest regarding a mosque. So we've kind of started covering these stories as well. There seems to be a rising anti-Muslim sentiment in India that corresponds with a rise in Indian nationalism. If you'll remember one of our last segments, Modi, the Prime Minister of India, erected a temple, or a Hindu temple on the site of a famous ancient mosque, which caused a lot of outrage there, and it seems to be like this pattern is continuing. So in this particular town, many protesters got quite angry and violent, and leading to, like I said, the death of 5 people. Who knows where what this really is going to lead to? It's quite likely that Indian nationalism is going to continue to rise, and with that, likely some animosity towards their Muslim neighbors in Pakistan. But I sure hope, for everyone's sake, that just mellows out a little bit. Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining me, friends. As always, crazy stuff out there. But love ya. Bye.